For all those watching today at NJCU, all the students, my name is Dr. or Professor Weiss, as I like to go by. I'm the founder and director of the New Jersey City University Institute for Dispute Resolution, which has a number of different vehicles within that think tank, including business, which is underneath the Connecting Bridges and Borders division, and also has within that spatial design the STEAM and STEM perspective, which is our entrepreneurship division, which you can look at, and we call that the IDR's Innovation Entrepreneurship Connect New Jersey City University Jersey City project. We are here today on the perspective of helping you on both leadership and mentorship. And this is a very poignant topic. I actually spent several hours today listening to the hearings for the New Jersey State Assembly Legislature on the committee that deals with the budget and that is specific to higher education. That includes our community colleges and our colleges. And as the Secretary of Education said, which is under Governor Murphy, and his name is Mr. Brian Bridges, leadership and mentorship is one of the key linkages that we want to focus on in our state to help you. And that is part of what we're doing today. And with that, I'm very proud to introduce what you were hearing, a number of distinguished panelists, some from within our university and some from obviously outside our ecosystem. So without delay, I would like Ms. Bernard to give just a 2-minute sort of overview of her background, if you would.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Donna Bernard, and I'm delighted to be here and speak to everyone today. My thinking about joining today, I was thinking back to when I graduated college in a long time ago, and the transition from going from college into the corporate workforce and how that seemed daunting at the time. And I never thought I would be where I am today, where it's a 30-year career, highlighted by 18 years at Thomson Reuters, time at Bloomberg. And back then, those companies didn't exist when I graduated college in the form that they are today. So I'm happy to be here. And I think mentorship, that transfer of knowledge, is essential, and new ways to view old problems. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone and being a part of this program tonight. Donna Bernard.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. Next with us is a graduate student at Wharton, which this is the first time I'm having an opportunity, as well as you are, to hear from her. And Rachael Cohen, why don't you give a little bit 2-minute background on yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Rachael. I grew up in New Jersey, stayed pretty close by. I went to Villanova for undergrad, graduated in 2014, math major. I then spent 5 years working at Deloitte Consulting, which I had a great experience. We'll have to chat. I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. Loved that. And then went back to business school. Like David said, I'm currently at Wharton, graduating in December, actually, but that's a whole different story. And I'll be returning back to Deloitte when I graduate. And I took a leave of absence, and during that time, I spent some time working on entrepreneurship and startups. So happy to talk about that. And also can't stress enough how much mentorship and sponsorship has been essential to my career at Deloitte and at school. So excited to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Rachael. And if you don't mind, first names as we begin the process. Omosede, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name properly. Omosede Ogiamien, did I say it?
Yeah,
close?
I can, don't worry, it's
okay,
Omosede.
please.
You can call me today. Yeah, so Omosede Ogiamien, I am a partner at Deloitte. Been at Deloitte since I basically started crawling, since just right out of college. And I've just been pretty fortunate to work across 4 major functions within our organization. And I've seen everything from, auditing to systems implementation to business growth to digitization to ventures. I mean, the expansion and the knowledge and what I've gathered to date has just been amazing. For those of you who don't know Deloitte, one of the things that we're really big on is mentorship, sponsorship, as well as, developing next gen leaders. And so, I've benefited from it. Sometimes I teach it. A lot of my clients say, how do I elevate finance so that finance can be a better served partner, and make, things better and more efficient. And that's what I do. So very nice to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Omosede. And next, for many of the students that are listening today, the infamous Dr. Danielle Beam.
Thank you, David. First and foremost, shout out to the athletes. Thank you all for hopping on today. Like David said, my name is Danielle. I am the director of the Rising Knight Institute, which really its entire foundation is built on leadership and mentorship. So a good majority of what we try to do from a programming perspective is to really give our students key opportunities to better themselves, both professionally and personally. So we're really excited to be here in this partnership and here for all of you great panelists. So thank you all for giving us your time today, and I'm excited to learn more about you.
Thank you, Dr. Beam. And last but not least is Michael Jasonos. And Michael, why don't you give a little bit about your athletic background, because a lot of the sports athletes will be very interested, and also a little bit about your international background and what you're doing in the corporate world today.
Thanks, David. Hi, I'm Michael Jasonos. In high school and a little bit of junior college, I was a wrestler. And through that transition, just met a multitude of people throughout the world. I was at a high level wrestling in the junior nationals. So today, a lot of the guys that I met back in like the early, late 90s are now like international and national coaches for the Olympic developmental team. So I've always kept my feet on the ground and close to that. In business, I did my studies, my undergrad and grad in Helsinki, Finland. And from there, I started opening up a couple different ventures, mostly in the hospitality world. And, throughout my career, I've always had mentors and, people helping me to direct the positions that I wanted to gain. And it's kind of led me to here in full circle back to a university that's really focusing on, those ideas. So I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. So I think what we would like to start with from each of your perspectives, and that also I would like to, wait, let me pause, because there's somebody that is very instrumental in what we call the foundation of the house. And he's also a product like you of the New Jersey City University system. He, in fact, even owned a business in Jersey City even before he became Dr. Arbitblit. Dr. Arbitblit is my right-hand man and is the senior fellow at the Institute for Dispute Resolution, which one of these days, one of you may become. He started out as an undergraduate student, graduate student, and was conferred his doctoral degree about a month ago, right, Dr. Arbitblit? So tell everyone here a little bit about you.
So, hello, everyone. Pretty much going off what Professor Weiss was just saying, I just finished my EDD in Education Technology Leadership. And prior to that, I did my MBA in Organizational Management and Leadership from NJCU, as well as my Bachelor's in Business Management. Right now, I'm the Senior Doctoral Fellow at the Institute for Dispute Resolution, hosting events similar to this. Professor Weiss and I have been working diligently over Zoom since COVID started and built a whole online presence through our YouTube series, Connecting Bridges and Borders, and various digital events. Also, like he said, I've owned a restaurant and a music venue in downtown Jersey City about 2015 or so. And I had a big background in the music industry, from record labels to management and managing my own artists on my own solo. So I had my own little taste of entrepreneurship early on before I actually got involved in a higher level of entrepreneurship with a great cast of panelists here. And to be honest, I would not be where I am without mentors from my former bosses at the record labels, to Dr. John Lasky in the business management department, to Professor Weiss, I would not be sitting here today. And definitely with all the other professors that I've ever had through the ed tech department, every step of the way, someone was there teaching me something new. And that's a big thing that I take away from having a mentor, is everyone could be a mentor regardless of where they come from.
Thank you, Dr. Arbitblit. And that's really important. I think for all of you that are listening today, mentorship is not something that's a one-way street. And I can speak from personal experience, even in my life today. It's a two-way street. You need to have a mentor that wants to adopt you, but you also want to be adopted by them. So I think I'd like to start sort of the question of the panel on this sort of concept and hear from each of them about their life journeys in that process, because there are many parts of my journey where I really wanted a particular mentor to help me, to guide me. You know, as Ralph Waldo Emerson pointedly said, life's a journey, not a destination. So if we think about these concepts, and by the way, just as a little factoid, he didn't actually write that. It was a woman. But in those days, he got to coin it, just to be clear. I'd like to hear from each of the panelists. So we'll start with Donna, and we'll work our way through Rachael and Omosede and Michael and Dr. Beam. So Donna, would you start for 1 minute on that perspective, please?
I was thinking back to my early mentors, and it was really at the time, it was notable people that said things that were important to me, that resonated. It was more tidbits of knowledge. When I graduated college, I wasn't in sports, and I wasn't in different groups to have a formal mentorship. But I always looked at the leadership where there was always someone who would say something, and we would think we would find a way to do something. So it was just talking to people, sharing knowledge, being curious. So there wasn't just one mentor that I had. And I know that it was always a sharing of ideas for people that I worked with or worked with me, because I always worked with people that were older and younger. And I always sat at a table that I didn't know anyone. And, we would go to meetings, and I'm not sure why I always did this, but I always sat somewhere different at different corporate events and just learned from everyone and shared knowledge. So I don't have a formal mentorship program, but it was maybe my life's lessons. So I hope somewhere along the road, I inspired someone with something I said, but I know I was inspired by people that shared the vision of never giving up. Find a way.
So first of all, thank you, Donna, if you didn't hear me. But
I didn't hear
Rachael,
you.
I'm going to ask you for the first, for the question as well, but 1 minute as well, please.
So something that I found really interesting about the mentor-mentee relationship, a lot of times when you go to a company, or hopefully, they'll try to set up like kind of a matching program for you, which I think is great. But I think the best kind of mentors that I've had have been really like organically developed. And it's kind of, you don't really go to someone and say like, oh, can you be my mentor? Like I've never really done that, but it's pretty clear just over time that like these people have evolved into mentors. And I think as a mentee, the way that I kind of went about that was obviously you figure out over time that you like someone and you admire them, and you kind of, they're like a role model to you. And I would just kind of start like setting up a coffee chat and trying to just do check-ins with them every couple of weeks or every month or however it is. And that just relationship kind of just developed over time organically. So I would just say, you don't feel like you have to like label someone as a mentor or whatever, but it should be an organic kind of development.
And that's great. This organic concept. We'll come back to that in a moment. That's a great perspective. But I want to stay with just for a moment for each panelist to give their perspective of the first question. So, Omosede, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think for thinking back to my career at Deloitte, just as Rachael mentioned, there's usually this unnatural marriage that tends to happen. And for me, it's all about being vulnerable and opening up, because what I found is the people who really helped me, who made an impact. And if I closed my eyes and thought about my 18 years of experience, the bright spots was when I thought I was really complaining, and that person, I don't know what they moved, whether it was some mountain that I didn't see, but they moved things out of the way for me to get through. There's a number of people I could tell you that time and time again, when I started my relationship with them, it was just because, we got along. They were slightly above me in the organization. And I would find times talking to them about what was challenging about work, what was not challenging about work, what I was coming to learn about myself, that perhaps I was like stuck in my own way and I needed someone to open my aperture a little bit. And those are the people that, still show up even after 18 years, still working with them, and they're still inviting me to different things and being that mentor. So sometimes just being vulnerable and opening up, and the people that you're the most natural in doing that, I always find that, their advice is usually spot on because they know you very well.
And that's a great perspective that we're also going to come back to, which is this: is it a network or a relationship? Everyone sort of think about that as I come back around for the next question. Michael, on the first question, would you please provide for 1 minute your perspective for our students?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. I know everyone says that a lot on these Zooms too, but it really is a good question. And it made me think, I guess my first mentors, it started out with coaches. And once the coach got me to a certain point mentally, I think I went to my competition and tried to find out how I could better myself from there. And I feel like that's the road I took in my professional career as well, because whatever job I had, and it probably got me into some trouble with the people around me, but I always sought the assistance from the people at the top of the ring. I always went right to the head of the organization or the head of the group and tried to get as much information out of them. And it helped me to aspire to be them rather than the guy that was right next to me. I always wanted more in that sense, because I knew I would get more from them too, because the guy next to me was trying to do the same as me, but at another level. So I guess a network and building from there is the answer to that question.
I think that's excellent. And I we're going to come back to that next level as well as part of this dialogue in a moment. So Dr. Beam, what about you? How do you see this perspective from?
I would say Michael hit the nail on the head, especially if you were an athlete. For me, at first glance, it was always coaches, because that's the natural, you look up to that individual. But really, the impact came from your peers. My best friend has a saying, and it's, if you hang out with people who eat bologna, you eat bologna. If you hang out with people who eat steak, you eat steak. So I learned very early on that it's the people you surround yourself with that become your network, but they also inspire you. And I think for me, mentoring, it's synonymous with inspiration. And I've had the privilege to now be a mentor for a academic athletic advisor at UConn for the men's basketball program. And that relationship has turned into, a more of a friendship than anything, because our lives are so parallel and we've gone through so many of the similar things that it really kind of hones in on that connection, which I think is the most powerful, because you have somebody to lean on who has gone through what you've gone through.
So the first takeaway for all of you as young students, and really what we call, I know it sounds cliche, but it's really true, and that is that you are the next generation to be. And for those of you that may be listening, that maybe perhaps are in my class, I've said this time and time again, your generation is going to make a significant, already is, change. You are the next generation of change agents. It's something that the impact is so important. So when we talk about this perspective of mentorship and leadership, it's not that we are guiding you the way it should be. That is your self-determination. What we are doing, as Donna mentioned, and everyone in their own ways on this panel has mentioned, is the transfer of knowledge of our lifetimes. It doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just that we're sharing so that you, through your own prism of self-determination, your own perspectives, can then learn and then decide. somebody very close to me that is a major donor to the IDR, they actually live in Australia, they're not even from the United States, has come to NJCU before COVID. And he said something to my class that resonated so well. You're not going to change the world, but you can leave your footprint on it. And think about that concept, because if everyone leaves a little footprint, you are changing the world. So the second question I have for the panelists, also for 1 minute, we talk about now from mentorship to ecosystem. And it started with Rachael, and Omosede also talked about it, and Michael spoke about it. Donna and Dr. Beam also stated it in their own sort of perspectives, but now we're making it much more clear for you. So you have mentorship and leadership, that's one thing, but ecosystems and building relationships is a secondary focus. So based on that, we'll start with Rachael. How have you traversed, if you will, the ecosystem building process? What has worked, what has not worked, and really separate from the mentorship? And how have you built those relationships that have helped you in your journey?
Yeah, definitely I would say separate from mentorship. It seems like just more of like growing your network. And I think it can be within and outside of your organization. And I think it's actually networking overall is something that I always really kind of focused on. I'm a really big user of LinkedIn. And I think that before or during your career, if you are looking for a certain industry or someone who works at a certain company, it's like kind of not being afraid to just send a message. They may or may not respond. And I think the best way to do it is to find someone with something like in common with you. So a lot of times your alma mater works really well. And even when I was at Deloitte, it's like a gigantic firm. I worked across so many different kind of service areas. And whether I'm working on a project or working on what we call a firm initiative, I did something called Startup Deloitte. And I had to like connect with just kind of organizations within the firm that I would have never otherwise gotten in touch with. It's really just being afraid to, or not being afraid to just send the message. I think most people are going to respond. You definitely will have times when they won't. Just have a clear kind of ask, know what you want to ask them and have a solid conversation. And then they're in your network, and that's great. And you can go to them, when they need something, and it's a, two-way street. So it's good.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the digital age of relationship building and the LinkedIn, and I've heard this a lot. So we'll kind of revisit that in a moment. But let me give everyone else on the panel a chance to answer the primary question of relationships and ecosystem building. Dr. Beam, you're next on my Zoom, so we'll kind of go that way.
All right. So in terms of networking, I think it's really unique, especially for me, because I kind of have my hands in a lot of different pots here within the athletics department, and how that kind of translates outside of athletics. So initially, as we network or teach student athletes how to network, you're networking with this group of students who have this love for competition, right? So it's like this thing that ties you together. And then there are so many other offsets of what those interests are. So you could be an athlete and you could be a business major. You can be an athlete and you can be an educator. You could be an athlete and you could be interested in something as crazy as skydiving. But you're going to find your various groups that kind of propel you into connecting with external folks. I personally have found that like women empowerment meetings, especially in Jersey City, were kind of my bread and butter in terms of just like finding where I fit in. Through something with community recreation, which is another program I run, I was able to get connected with Jersey City Families. If any of you are familiar with them, they sponsor about 50,000 youngsters around the Hudson County area. But through that, I've met so many women who were business owners, and that really opened my eyes to kind of how I could impact my student athletes more. And it really had nothing to do with athletics, but just that empowerment of young women was something that was so important. And although they were not necessarily the same, they were aligned in their mission. And that's kind of really how I usually go with networking, like heart-centered servant leadership. Anyone who's in that boat, I'm good with.
And we're going to revisit that in my next question, this concept of empowerment and the importance of it, which for 3 hours today, you'll be happy to hear. our, at least Assembly State Legislature, which oversees budget, was very attuned to this concept. So, Omosede, please.
So I would start off by saying when I was younger in my career, I was not intentional about making, having relationships. I was naturally attracted to people. I was naturally curious as to what people were doing. I was naturally empathetic to what they were doing. It was all about finding ways to have something in common that we could, that makes us the same, or at least that differentiates us so well that it was kind of intriguing. And so maybe I guess for the first 8 years of my experience and professional experience at Deloitte, I just kind of did it haphazardly. I knew a lot of people in what people would consider high places, and I just didn't really want anything from them. But then I started to get a little bit mature, and I started to have a general sense of the direction that I was going and what I needed. And then it became very important to say, all right, well, if I'm heading north, as an example, and there's many, many stops in, going north, and I'm going to need something, who are the people that I know today that are around, that are at those stops that could help me? Think about it like going on a journey. You stop at the gas station. Who can help me, give me clear directions until the next stop, and the next stop until I get to my destination? So I started being a little bit more specific about, relationships, not don't think about it negatively, like, oh, you're just using somebody. But frankly, we're all here in this world to help each other. So who could help me get further along in my journey? And then what could I give them? Because it's a two-way street, but so there's a give and a get. What did they want? What did I have? And how could we be mutually beneficial to each other? And I started being a little bit more precise and strategic in terms of, relationship. I'll tell you, as a partner, one of my critical tasks is to bring in new business. And sometimes bringing new business is asking for a meeting where you don't know the person at all. And it's always very strange if you have to go up to someone you don't know and say, I want to get to meet you and get to know you. They're like, what do you want from me? And so I had to be more clear around, what is it that could help them, that they need, and how could I give that to them? And then finding many ways to connect on something similar or some common interest. So that's just, a little bit of background of just how I go about it is, where are you going? Who's along that journey? And then, what is it that you can give them? Because everybody has something that is so unique to you that you can give. And then, where does that align?
That's so poignant, Omosede, because it really, just the nuance that I want our students to understand is that this isn't networking. Networking is building your LinkedIn accounts, building your ecosystem. But then after you've established that, relationships is also about what Omosede is referring to, the trust, the building of a two-way trust system, which then will lead to whatever opportunities perhaps you're thinking about, whether it's a job opportunity, whether it's closing a transaction. You first have to start with trust. Michael, I want to give you now the opportunity to also speak to the perspective of how you look at your journey within the concept of that ecosystem question that we first designed.
Yeah, thinking of what Omosede is, spoke to, it's about those relationships. Consciously, we say the word networking, but that's a term that is pretty new and it's a professional term. And when we speak about relationships, a network is consciously your friendships. It starts at the infantile state as a child, and you keep those relationships and grow those friendships throughout your life. And those friendships are the things that actually become a network. And then from there, you grow on them and you build off them as your professional career grows and as you grow and mature as an individual. You may not always have that person right next to you, but they're always going to be linked to you, which, the term LinkedIn comes from. And, from that, you're able to, modify those friendships into business relationships and assisting the friends that you have to meet other friends and to build their own network throughout. This is the reason I've met you, David, is because we were, have friendships through other people and through organizations. And, this is why I'm here now speaking to the students about what a network is, and how you can build it from where you are now. It's from the base of a friendship, and then you build it up into that top of the pyramid to where you want to get to.
And as we go to Donna in 1 minute, I want to keep recapturing sort of these three phraseologies that we're using. One started with mentorship, right? The help, somebody there that has had that, what Donna said, that transfer of knowledge experience. In our world, as you will come to know when you become a professional, we call it the minefields. So if you can learn from a mentor to avoid certain minefields, you'll still be on minefields yourself. But if you can mitigate your minefields from a mentor, that will help advance you to the next level, but only within the peripheral of what we understand minefields to be. Remember, your age group, where we are in the world today, presents many minefields that we, even as mentors, with all the best intentions, may not even ourselves recognize. The second part of what we've been discussing, and the second question, which Donna is now going to address from her perspective, that all the other panelists have done for a minute, is the ecosystem building. And you keep hearing different words because every word is very meaningful. So building a network may not be necessarily just the ecosystem. It's building a network, and within that network, and I'll speak to all of you that understand the word first degree and Facebook and second degree, right? The idea is that the ecosystem may have third and fourth degrees, but the key factor is the trust and the relationships in the first degree. So Donna, please, on the second question we've been asking everybody, your 1 minute perspective.
Well, my career is focused always on meeting new people. So one day I have to gather up all my cards on, because you would hand your cards so people would know who you are and how to get in touch with you. And I would go to many networking or business meetings and collect cards from everyone I spoke to. But what I did when I left was I wrote little notes about the people, anything notable about them, because we always had some interesting tidbit, and I would write it on the back of the card, and I would put stars on, when to contact or just notable things. And then 2008, I was invited to LinkedIn by someone, and one of the journalists at Thomson Reuters by that time said, consider that your Rolodex, because if you're going to meet someone, you take the time to look at them, who they are, something about them, something you may have in common. And even if they have a picture, if they come down to meet you, you know who they are instead of being surprised. It's just a warm way to know people. So now with close to 11,000 LinkedIn people, it's really interesting how I know a lot of them, or I know how we're connected. And I consider it now my LinkedIn Rolodex. And I love that anyone who's ever worked with me is connected on my LinkedIn. I have everyone's text message that is kind of like my inner circle of people that know me. They know how I think, and I can randomly text them, hey, I was thinking about this, and I think you could help me. Or I get texts from people, Donna Bernard, we need to ask you this. And, I love that, because this is what keeps your inner spirit. This is what keeps you alive, because, I've always embraced new technology. And, the chaos that we're living through right now with the pandemic, I think is really an opportunity to build forward better in a new way, because we need that. So yeah, it's my ecosystem. It's sometimes we call it my posse. I have work husbands. I have, friends all over. There is no cold call to me. People would say, how do you make cold calls? I'm like, I think everyone's waiting to hear from me. So everyone's waiting for me to call them. And that's just, that's my sales background of 30 years. So no just means not now. A challenge means find a way, never give up, never, ever give up. And
I think that's a really important comment you made. Never give up. It's actually something within the entrepreneurship world, but I think it applies across every medium. Always know that even when the glass, like an hourglass, is all empty, think about this for yourselves. And usually when it rains, it pours concept, right? There's a lot coming at you. Take the risk, change it upside down, put all the sand back in that hourglass. Think of it as a symbolism within yourself. And with each of you, you're all individuals. So your risk tolerance may be different from somebody else. But the common denominator is that you're willing to say, I'm not going to keep hitting myself against the same wall every day, knowing I'm not taking the wall down, even though consciously you know, but you keep doing it because you're comfortable. The worst thing you can do is get too comfortable, especially if you're not passionate about what you do. So for all the sports athletes, for everybody that is here on this that's here on this program today, passion is key to success. If you're not passionate about doing something, then you have to figure out how to untangle the reasons why you have to do it. We all have commitments. We all have to pay our bills. We all have different friendships, personal relationships, families. But this is a very key element to success. So I'd like to pivot while we're about 3/4 of the way through the program and ask a very important question of each of my panelists. And we are entering into, using that hourglass perspective, I see this as an opportunity for your generation. Yes, it has its challenges. Yes, every day we are, knee deep in COVID. We don't know with all this uncertainty where the world stands, whether it's in your backyard or what you watch on the news globally around the world. But that doesn't mean there's still not opportunities. That doesn't mean there's still not passion. So on that perspective, if I may start with Dr. Beam, how do you stay resilient to continue your passion?
I feel like I probably have the easiest time answering this question, so I don't want anyone else to be a little struggle city with it. But I walk into work every day and I am greeted with athletes who are there regardless of what expectation was set for them previously, right? Like we serve a group of students at NJCU who people kind of don't always have the best forethought for when they're in high school. And our athletes specifically are students who really are putting in 30 plus hours a week as athletes. They're working a part-time job essentially for free to represent NJCU. So for me, knowing that their commitment is so high, like I should quit right now if I can't match or better their energy, because as a passion project, like helping the next generation is everything that I ever wanted to do. And I'm so lucky and grateful that I have the opportunity to do it in a place where I also have creative freedom. So I can always introduce new things. I can always introduce new programs. I can always kind of go outside the box and be like, hey, let's get together and talk about this. And that's not something that necessarily is always what had happened previously, but it's a really unique way to keep things fresh and engage with the younger generation who essentially will be our leaders very soon. So making sure that they have all the support and all the empowerment, like that drives me in every possible way. And
so just to flip it up and down, Omosede, would you please provide your perspective on, maybe if you won't mind, because Dr. Beam gave a great perspective, because we're all jealous of the fact that she loves everything she's doing. I want to know, are we in Disney World on that one?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Don't listen to Dr. Beam. I'm just saying.
I know. I would like to hopper pass to where Dr. Beam is. But would you give...
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I was hoping I'd go after somebody else so that we can bring it down a little bit. But anyway, all kidding aside.
It was purposefully done.
Thank you, David. Now I know how you are. So I would say that, prior to COVID, right, I kind of loved my job. I traveled around, right? I actually knew the details of what I was doing. So I'd put in my time. And so when I was telling a client that they shouldn't do something, it's either because I had learned a lesson or I had heard from someone else, but I actually had a very solid point of view. So I was traveling and I was visiting so many places, lived, stayed in Tokyo, and I kind of loved it. I didn't like the fact that I didn't have a lot of personal connection at home. So I wanted a little bit more balance and stability from that perspective. Well, now we're in the pandemic and the work is real and it's tough and it's so much of the same. And I always struggle with, how am I going to bring my best self to work today? I won't lie to you. There were times when I told Alexa, right? I was trying to wake up in the morning and I said, Alexa, tell me something inspiring today. And she would say, well, here's a quote by so-and-so. Do you want another one? I'm like, yes. And another one. And I'm like, yes. And as I'm listening to another one, I actually pump myself up and get out of bed because I say, listen, Omosede, you started off really loving this profession. COVID is real. The struggle is hard. It's not clear where the next path is, but you got to get up and you got to try again. So I started using Alexa. You can laugh at me if you want. I started using Alexa. I also started looking for very simple quotes. So things like, today is a good day to try. I didn't make it up. That was a Walt Disney quote. So I would post it and say, today is a good day to try. Try something else. When I get frustrated on calls, I say, Omosede, breathe. You've got this. Listen. You're not listening. If you're bored, you're not paying attention, you're not listening. This is about your personal development. So I started to do a lot of more self-talk in like the fact that I don't see this as a job. I see it as a career. And the more that I invest in what am I getting out of the conversation? What am I getting out of this? And what can I bring to the conversation to elevate the conversation? I started to focus more on those things. So that's kind of how I stay resilient. What's going on? Why am I here? What am I going to contribute? I might not have all the answers, but I'm going to have some bullet points. And that helps me focus. It helps me stay connected. And then it helps me to constantly think about the next thing. But it was tough. It wasn't very easy when the pandemic started. I was like, oh, I need to go do something else with my life. But anyway, those are my the couple of things that I just jotted down that I wanted to make sure I shared.
No, it's very important, these different perspectives that we're giving our students. So just for time management, we have 4 minutes before our last 10 minutes. So on the passion question, because I have one more open-ended question for each of the panelists for 1 minute apiece. So please bear with the 1 minute rule, okay? Michael, what's your perspective on the passion question, please?
Passion is, for me, being involved with something that I actually love. Being around people that I respect, people that, are going to push me. I love to travel. I love to see, different elements of life. I do it a lot. Pandemic held me back a little bit. So it gave me time to, reflect on, relationships I have with family and friends that are close. So, that's made me want to go out there more and get a little more done. I'm 46 now, getting a little more done in the next 10 years before I kind of slow it down again to just enjoy and, reflect on what the next stage will be. But for now, the passion is just about getting out there and getting things done on a daily basis. It's the journey. You're never going to be happy trying to get to, the top of the pyramid, but you're going to find a lot of goal setting during that journey.
That's a very good word that you use, Michael. Goal setting. Don't overpressure your goals. Give yourself some patience. So Donna, on some brief remarks to passion for time management for all of our panelists, please, for 1 minute.
So it was bleak for me in the early March of last year. And I went back to the basics of going to technology pitch competitions to look for new technology because I knew that was going to be important on how we emerged. And I discovered Grow Squares, which the CEO is Zach Whitman, and was really intrigued. And I had just started talking to David more, Professor Weiss more, on innovation and technology and ways that I could give back in mentorship. Because I love looking, I went back to the basics of what I love to do is learn about new technologies and then being able to bridge that into the the students of the IDR, it was like a perfect platform for me to collaborate with. And that's really what inspired me through this pandemic. And it's really exciting. For a quick announcement, they actually went live today. So it's not only starting in the pandemic, it's actually in the Apple Store today, which is a really tough thing to do. So, you know, that's my passion, is bringing new things to it. It addresses food insecurity. It teaches about supply chain. It teaches about ways to source products, and it's good for mental health. So that's what makes me, those are my passions, is improving with technology and connecting with people.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Rachel, please, on the passion question, if you would.
Yeah, I can actually kind of give a student perspective on this, and kind of mixed with COVID and everything, because I'm back in school, and I came back to school as an opportunity to kind of see if I had any new passions. You know, I loved consulting, but I was like, what else is out there? And there's always a silver lining of COVID. We've all heard it, but I think a great part of it was that I mentioned earlier, my school allowed us to take a leave of absence if we were allowed to, or if we were, you know, if we had the means to, which I was very lucky. Deloitte was supportive of that and everything. So I interned last summer in banking. I tried that out. But something else I really wanted to try was just kind of the startup world and entrepreneurship. And if there was no COVID, I don't think I wouldn't have taken that leave of absence, and I wouldn't have spent my entire fall semester like exploring that. I worked at Grosswares, and I also spent time full time at Techstars, which is an accelerator. And I feel I'm so thankful that I did that. So I think like speaking to the students, I think there could be a lot of opportunities for you to explore things now that we're virtual. It's a lot easier. You can work at a company that's not based in your city. So I think, you know, kind of this is a good time to kind of just keep finding your passions, or it's a good time to search for them. So that's, I think, one positive of COVID, I would say, in finding your passions.
And Rachel, you say something I think that's really, really important for our students to hear, and that is trying things. Life in the university setting is the exact time you're supposed to be trying new things. One thing one day, one thing another day. It's okay. And even as you progress in your life, you will find that the more successful and adaptive you are to an ever-changing world will then become what we call innate, where you will be able to do these trying of things that will wind up being translated into multiple careers. So a little historical fact, I mean, you go back 10, 15 years ago, when you were looking for a job and you had your CV or resume, to Rachel's point, and everyone on this panel knows this as well, is that if you moved from a job and like for more than 10 years, it was like, what's wrong with you, right? In today's world, it's gone the opposite way. Why haven't you? Yeah. So these things are actually really much more embraced in the modern era in which you live in, which I think is a fantastic opportunity for you as well. So my last question is going to be an open-ended question to the panelists, and then we have a keynote, I'll call it, extra question for Dr. Arbitblit from these 4 questions that I've posed to the panel, and I'll refresh for Dr. Arbitblit the 4 themes that we've done. But the question is about dedication, and I'm going to leave just the word, like a dangling participle, dedication, and then you can fill in the blanks as you deem. So I will start with Michael Jasonos for a second and let him fill in the blanks as he deems for 1 minute, please.
Yeah, okay, so dedication. It's the only thing that's going to get you to your goal or to what you want in life. You got to dedicate yourself in so many different ways. Throughout my life, I guess I just might have done it, organically, and built on that along the way. It started with sports where, if you're an athlete, you got to put in the time. And then after that, you have to, think about your mindset and how you're going to dedicate that. And then as well as balancing your relationships with your family, your friends, the organization that you're in, the your teachers. So to me, dedication is about balance. I think that's the best way I could sum it up.
I think that's a fantastic perspective. Rachel, why don't we let you go first? Or second, we'll say, too, since you were last.
Yeah, I'm thinking of dedication and kind of tying it back to all the themes we talked of, like you said. So I feel like going off the passion thing, like when you're passionate about something, I feel like you naturally develop like this dedication to it, whether it's your company or the company you work for. I'm also thinking of it just as a way, like the network and the relationships and the mentors that we spoke of. I think those relationships are also something that you need to kind of commit time to and dedicate yourself to, whether it's, going out of the way to set up the time with someone, making sure you're checking in. For example, I'm still checking in with the people I used to work with before business school. I had like 2 calls last week. We have that time on the calendar. It's just, you have to stay committed to those relationships. So I would hope that dedication becomes something that you want to do and not really something that feels like a chore. So that's what I would say.
That's excellent. Omosede?
Yeah, I would say dedicate your time to developing yourself in the way that you're consistent in how you treat people. And that's whether it's your family, your friends, your community, your network. Everyone has to feel you the same way. And sometimes that's really difficult. It takes time. You have to learn who you are, how you want to show up, how you want to be a creative. So dedicate your time to actually doing that so that there's a consistent way of how you approach people that is appreciated.
That's really, with this, what Omosede just said is not just for the job, not just for the internship. Your whole life should be operating in this ethos. Yeah. Dr. Beam?
As soon as you posted that question to the crew, the first thing that came to my mind was something that the NCAA does very well, and it institutes the concept of what's your why. So your why is what drives you. Your why is your mission. Your why is your passion. But I think for Rachel's point, there is this dangerous line between dedication and passion, and you could be fully dedicated, like blindly dedicated to something becomes very dangerous, especially when you're trying to keep that passion going. So although I was like very high on the other spectrum of being super excited about my job because I love it, I'm going to err on the side of caution with this and just have everyone really take that into consideration. Your why is what should drive you. It should be the mission that kind of anchors you. But the ability to understand the difference between blind dedication and loyalty versus what that passion is something that's really important. And sometimes it takes like some pretty awful things to figure that out, but it definitely will benefit you in the long term.
So as we move to Donna, and we have to watch our times, Donna's going to be 1 minute as well. I think with Dr. Bean, my question maybe is a ad hoc question back. Perhaps passion is more replaced with the word commitment to your passion.
Commitment to your passion, I think, is important, especially when you have that, that thing that you're reaching, that goal that you're going for, that attainable thing. You have to be committed to that regardless of, what you might be missing out on in other aspects. If you really want to, as any athlete will tell you, if you want to win the championship, you're not just practicing when your coach is holding practice. You're practicing on your own, and many hours that are not logged in the gym. That's how you breed a champion. It's not what's done in the gym during season. It's what's done on the off season. And I think that really ties it all in a very nice, neat bow for the answer to that rebuttal of yours, Professor Weiss.
So Donna, we have to watch our time because we only have 2 minutes. So for 1 minute, I still want to be fair though and ask you the dedication question, although we may have found amongst ourselves collegiately a replacement word to commitment, but please, on the passion word.
Well, dedication or commitment, that's my energy. I was always proud of the organizations I affiliated or worked with and the people that I surrounded myself with. So my passion was my energy, and people could count on me to walk in with a positive outlook and a smile and always be open to listen. And if there's a bump in the road, you stand up, and that's what makes you smart. That's what makes you stronger. So and
that strength, I think, is a very important way to summarize up these 4 questions. And I'm going to now ask Dr. Arbitblit, as I refrain all 4 for all of you, to give his 1 minute perspective and some commentary so that we can have, if some of you have some Q&A questions, we'll leave a minute or so for that, as Dr. Arbitblit will also provide some important information to you as well for the conclusion of this program. We've kind of gone through a journey here. We started with leadership and mentorship. We've sort of explored at a very high level. Remember, this is just a little bit of an entrevue, we'd call it, of perspectives. We went to the ecosystem and building relationships and what the trust of those relationships mean and importance. We talked about passion, and we've actually even learned in that conversation of this program, perhaps we can take it from a different angle and look at it as a commitment rather than a passion. And then we've looked at dedication, which is the commitment to the replacement of the word. I apologize, Dr. Beam, but the passion has to be there. So it's leadership and mentorship, ecosystem and relationship and trust factors, passion, and then you can choose or think about whether it should be commitment or dedication or a combination thereof. That'll be your own self-determination to think about today. Dr. Arbitblit, on those 4 tenets, given your perspective as a product of NJCU, and knowing what you do within the IDR, within the entrepreneurship classes with me, what parting words for 1 minute can you provide? Because we are 1 minute almost over time, so go ahead.
So thank you for that. A quick thing I will say that kind of summarizes everything. As I mentioned in the beginning, anyone and everyone can be a mentor. It could just be a learning experience. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a life event anything that could propel you forward, could be something useful down the road, could be useful now. One thing though I can take away is that some people mentioned here, opportunities will arise, be ready to take them. Many of my major life experiences in business have been someone giving me a call at 11:30 at night saying, "What are you doing tomorrow? I have an idea." And if I didn't jump on that, I probably wouldn't be here today. And that's been everything I've done, from opening a restaurant. On Christmas Eve in 2014, I remember this vividly, saying, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Christmas?" And they're like, "Well, come on down to downtown Jersey City. I got to show you this place. We can open a restaurant here in about a month." And on the 26th, I went. And by January 17th, we had an up and running restaurant and music venue. So it took passion, dedication, that little bit of push from someone like a mentor, and that network that really connected me with all these people and got me to this place where I am today.
And Michael, I think that's a great way to sort of bring all these 4 themes together that we have sort of discussed amongst ourselves and individually. It's carpe diem, seize the moment. Because I say this often to many, including those in my class, every second of every moment of every day will only be every day of every moment of every second. It will never come again. So seize that moment, enjoy that journey, and build that journey through these 4 sort of perspectives that each of my great panelists have provided from their perspectives. And I want to thank Rachael, Omosede, and Dr. Beam, and Michael, and Donna for being here. And I appreciate your dedication, your passion for giving some enlightenment to all those that are listening today. And I know all of you, because I know I can almost think about it. Where are the internships? Where are the jobs? Well, before you begin that journey of internships, you first have to go around these concepts, because that will get you your internships. That will get you your careers, not just a job, and a career with passion. So on that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Arbitblit to conclude our program for a minute, including any Q&As for a second, or some of the other closing remarks that we have for you.
Thank you. Yeah, as Professor Weiss just said, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask a question in the chat and we'll read it to the panelists. But just for a quick recap, this event was in collaboration with the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Club at New Jersey City University, as well with the Rising Knight Institute. So if you are interested in being a part of events like this or other activities that you may see on the IDR's website and the Entrepreneurship Innovation Club's website, feel free to contact me. I'll put my email in the chat and we'll get you signed up for the fall semester. And Professor Weiss actually is also teaching a course in negotiation, principles of business negotiation, and another MYOB, which is mind your own business for entrepreneurship in the fall. For those who are not business management majors, come over to the School of Business. We have the entrepreneurship major now that Professor Weiss here is spearheading, and we're one of the fastest growing majors in the School of Business. We went from 2 students a year and a half ago to almost 100 now. So feel free to come join, and maybe you'll meet your future mentor with us.
We will also, just as a sidebar, the IDR current staff that you can see, which are many of them are you, including Dr. Arbitblit, who's here, others who are undergraduate students. They're all going on to their next journey in life, many of them. So we'll be seeking a few new spots for next fall. So certainly reach out to Dr. Arbitblit regarding possible opportunities within the IDR staff ecosystem. I'm very proud that we have a doctor here. Others are going off to Goldman Sachs. Some are going to become now firefighters for Jersey City. One is going to AmeriCorps. And one's got a full scholarship to New York Law School. So it's really exciting what the staff also becomes. And we'll be seeking through our job descriptions a limited amount of opportunities for new members to the IDR, really the think tank itself, which is separate from just the class opportunities. And these are paid opportunities as well. So to all of you, I wish you the best. I want to thank all of my panelists. And I want to thank Dr. Beam as well. Rachael Cohen for taking your time. Donna Bernard, Omosede. I hope I'm saying it right. I hope I'm getting it there. Getting close. Yeah, good. From Deloitte, and Michael from Comdata. And I really just appreciate the dedication of all of you who are listening today, because that means you have a dedication for your own lives and your own journey to become something bigger than perhaps even you thought you could be, because you can be. And we're all here to support that. That's why we do what we do. So on that, have a great evening, and we look forward to the next program. Take care.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, David, for putting this together. It was wonderful.